Ford Motor Company is reinvesting in Canada. Today, the automaker announced in a news release they are sinking billions into Oakville assembly. But don't worry, there's good news for Windsor here too.
A 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff.
U.S. automaker Ford is delaying the start of electric vehicle production at its plant in Oakville, Ontario by 2 years. The plant was slated to begin production in 2025 and is now pushing that back to 2027.
Trump promised tariffs would bring America's factories roaring back. He swore Detroit would be rebuilt, jobs revived, and foreign rivals crushed under the weight of America First economics. But what happened instead? Ford just packed up $3 billion and quietly moved the crown jewel of its next EV line to Canada. Yes, Canada. While Trump shouts, Ottawa builds. Detroit's factories are going dark. Workers are left staring at pink slips, and the very industry Trump claimed to rescue is slipping across the border. Why? Because Canada played the long game. Cheap electricity, critical minerals, trade reset diplomacy, and now Ford, GM, and the entire auto sector see where the future is heading. Trump's tariffs didn't protect America. They strangled it. And this is only the beginning. Because what Canada does next could decide the future of North American industry. Like, subscribe, and keep watching. Ford's move wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. It was a calculated escape route. The company's $3 billion investment into Oakville, Ontario, is more than just a factory expansion. It's a survival strategy. Trump's tariffs on imported auto parts and metals were supposed to make Made in America the cheapest option.
If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff.
Instead, they made Detroit one of the most expensive places on earth to build a car. Let's break it down. Under Trump's 2025 tariff regime, aluminum costs jumped 25%. Steel? Up nearly 30%. The average American-made car now costs between $1,500 and $2,000 more just in raw materials. And here's the kicker. U.S. automakers still rely heavily on parts from Mexico, Asia, and yes, even Canada.
Countries like Mexico, Canada, Romania. Trump wants these parts to say made in the U.S.
Slap a tariff on those, and the production line turns into a cost grenade. Ford didn't wait around for it to explode. They crossed the border. Oakville, Canada, suddenly looks like paradise for automakers. Ontario's government offered Ford generous subsidies, about $300 million in incentives. Electricity costs? Far lower than Michigan. Labor? Skilled, unionized, and still cheaper than the Midwest. Add Canada's access to nickel, cobalt, and lithium, minerals critical for electric vehicle batteries, and the deal was too good to refuse. But here's where it gets brutal. Detroit, once the beating heart of American auto power, is now bleeding jobs. Analysts estimate Ford's Oakville pivot could drain 10,000 direct and indirect jobs from Michigan's supply chain. That's not just factory workers. It's truckers, parts suppliers, local diners that feed shift workers. The domino effect is massive, and yet Trump still insists tariffs are working. He points to a handful of reopened steel mills in Ohio and Pennsylvania as proof that America is winning. But these mills employ hundreds, while Ford's relocation is costing thousands. The math doesn't lie. Tariffs have priced America out of its own market. This is where Canada's strategy shines. While Trump escalates with threats, Ottawa plays patient, deliberate chess. Instead of loud speeches, they focused on building infrastructure and energy deals. Cheap hydroelectric power from Quebec, expanded mineral mines in Ontario and Manitoba, and a trade reset under the USMCA that quietly locked in Canadian leverage on auto rules of origin. Remember, USMCA was supposed to be Trump's big trade win. But buried in those hundreds of pages were provisions Canada insisted on, allowing more flexibility in sourcing EV materials. While Trump bragged on stage, Canada quietly wrote itself a golden ticket for the electric future. So when Ford looked at the map, the choice was clear. Pay tariffs and bleed money in Detroit, or move north and plug into a system designed for the EV boom. They didn't hesitate. $3 billion later, Oakville is buzzing with construction, while Detroit stares at empty lots and angry workers. And it's not just Ford. General Motors has already hinted at shifting future production to Canada. Stellantis is reviewing its battery supply chains. Even Tesla, which Trump once praised as the model of American innovation, has been quietly negotiating with Canadian officials for critical mineral access. One by one, the crown jewels of America's auto industry are flirting with Canada's embrace. This is the nightmare scenario for Trump's America First policy. Instead of reshoring, tariffs triggered offshoring. Instead of job creation, job evaporation. And while Trump tries to spin the chaos as a short-term pain for long-term gain, Canada is locking in permanent advantages. Look at the numbers. In 2024, Canada attracted over $20 billion in auto-related investments, most of it tied to EVs. The US? Investments fell by 15% compared to the previous year. Companies don't gamble billions. They go where stability and strategy exist. And right now, that place is not Detroit. But here's the kicker that few in Washington want to admit. Canada doesn't even need to win every factory, just enough to tilt supply chains north of the border. Once EV batteries are sourced in Ontario, once aluminum smelters in Quebec set the price floor, once nickel flows from Sudbury instead of Minnesota, the leverage is permanent. The US will be dependent on Canada for the very resources Trump thought tariffs would protect. Detroit is feeling it already. Union leaders warn that if Canada keeps pulling jobs north, bargaining power collapses. Michigan lawmakers are panicking, begging the White House to soften tariffs before the damage becomes irreversible. But Trump's response? Double down. He frames it as a loyalty test. Stand with America or stand with Canada. That's not policy. That's theater. And while he performs for cameras, Ford and GM executives are flying to Ottawa, shaking hands with Canadian ministers, and signing deals that lock in decades of future production. And what's coming next will shock Washington even more. Because Canada isn't just winning factories, it's building an industrial ecosystem that America can't easily replicate. But that wasn't the whole story. Because Canada's strategy wasn't just about luring Ford with subsidies. It was about reshaping the entire North American auto industry from the ground up. And that's where the real trap begins. Canada's masterstroke isn't just about Ford, it's about control. While Trump screams about tariffs and bringing jobs back, Canada is quietly building the backbone of tomorrow's auto empire. And they're doing it piece by piece, like a grand strategy game where every move reshapes the board. Start with electricity. EVs run on batteries, but batteries are useless without cheap, reliable power to build and charge them. Canada holds the trump card. Hydro. Quebec alone produces more hydroelectricity than California, Texas, and New York combined. It's cheap, renewable, and stable. Ontario, Manitoba, and British Columbia add even more to the grid. Automakers know that energy costs can make or break a factory. In Detroit, tariffs made steel and aluminum expensive. In Ontario, hydro makes everything cheaper. It's the invisible subsidy Trump can't compete with. Then there are minerals. Nickel from Sudbury, cobalt from northern Ontario, lithium exploration booming across Quebec and Manitoba. These aren't just commodities, they're lifelines for EVs. The US spent years depending on imports from China, Indonesia, and the Congo. Trump's tariffs never solved that vulnerability. Canada, meanwhile, has quietly positioned itself as a Western alternative, friendly, reliable, and right next door. And here's the twist. Under USMCA rules, vehicles built with Canadian minerals still count as North American. That means Ford can build EV batteries in Ontario using Canadian nickel, then ship the finished cars into the US tariff-free. Trump's own trade deal just handed Canada the keys to the future. But Canada didn't stop there. One by one, automakers will follow, draining Detroit, empowering Canada, and rewriting the balance of power in North America. And that's the chilling part. Because if Trump thought he could bully Canada into submission with tariffs, he just discovered the opposite. Ottawa isn't just surviving, it's thriving, and it's doing so at America's expense. But this story doesn't end with factories. It ends with a warning. Because what Canada is building now isn't just about autos, it's about independence from Washington itself. So here's the truth. Trump's tariffs didn't bring jobs back, they pushed them away. Detroit's factories are going dark, Canada is cashing in, and Ford's $3 billion move is just the opening act. This isn't a trade skirmish, it's a transfer of power. And if America doesn't wake up, the auto heartland will be hollowed out while Canada drives off with the future. But here's the question you need to ask. If Ford, GM, and Tesla all see Canada as the smarter bet, what does that say about the state of American leadership? About Trump's so-called deal-making genius? The writing is on the wall, and it's written in Canadian steel, minerals, and electricity. If you want to stay ahead of this unraveling story, hit that like button, subscribe, and keep watching. Because what comes next could shake not just Detroit, but Washington itself.